Ryan Hartley is down. He's bleeding. Get him out of the water, now!
It was supposed to be just another dazzling Orca show at SeaWorld San Diego. The stadium was packed. Music blared. The crowd roared as Ryan Hartley, one of SeaWorld's rising stars, rode confidently on the back of a killer whale named Corky. But then, without warning, a massive shape exploded from the tank. A 12,000-pound male orca named Orky II. He launched himself into the air and came crashing straight down, right on top of Ryan and Corky. The impact was instant. Bones shattered. Water turned red. The audience gasped, frozen in disbelief. Trainers screamed for help. One of their own had just been crushed beneath a creature the size of a bus. That trainer's name was Ryan Hartley, and this was just the beginning. If you want to know what really happened that day and why SeaWorld never wanted you to hear it, make sure you watch to the very end. Hit like, subscribe, and let's dive into the terrifying story of Ryan Hartley's near-death encounter with a killer whale. Before the accident made headlines, before the lawsuits and the sealed documents, there was just a young man chasing a dream. Ryan Hartley was 26 years old, bright-eyed, soft-spoken, intensely driven. Ever since he was a kid, Ryan had one obsession: the ocean. While most kids were watching cartoons, Ryan was glued to documentaries about whales and dolphins. He didn't just want to see them, he wanted to understand them, work with them, speak their language. Those who knew him say he was compassionate to a fault, the kind of guy who'd stay late to feed an injured sea lion or clean the tank himself if someone else forgot. Co-workers adored him. Guests at the park noticed his energy too. Whether he was waving at a child in the front row or giving a seal a high five, Ryan made people feel like they belonged, just like the animals in his care. And it wasn't just charisma. Ryan had talent. In just under 2 years, he'd gone from basic trainer to being promoted to SeaWorld's elite Orca performance team, a rare honor. Only the best were allowed to get in the water with the orcas. But Ryan, he didn't just follow the script. He built something deeper. He wasn't just good at his job, one coworker said later. He had a bond with those whales that few of us could ever understand. And that bond would soon be tested in the most violent way imaginable. In 2007, SeaWorld San Diego wasn't just a theme park. It was a spectacle. Families came from across the world, not just for roller coasters or sea lions, but for the stars of the park, the killer whales. Towering over the park was Shamu Stadium, a colossal amphitheater that could seat over 5,000 people. At the center, a glittering turquoise tank filled with 7 million gallons of chilled salt water, a performance space designed to make the ocean itself bend to man's imagination. With blaring pop music, timed fountains, synchronized trainers, and high-flying whales, every show was a carefully choreographed masterpiece. And on that stage were the two orcas at the heart of the story. Corky, the calm veteran. Corky was a legend. Captured in the wild back in the 1960s, she had been in captivity longer than any other orca in the park. Her movements were smooth, her temperament gentle. Trainers called her the matriarch of the pool. She was the go-to whale for new trainers like Ryan, safe, steady, and reliable. If you were going to stand on an orca's nose in front of a live crowd, Corky was who you wanted beneath you. Orky II, the wild card. But Orky II was different. He was massive, even by Orca standards, nearly 12,000 pounds of raw muscle and unpredictable energy. His breaches were louder, his presence heavier, his eyes watchful, sometimes too watchful. Trainers respected Orky. Some even feared him. He'd had a few incidents in the past, nothing catastrophic, but enough to make people cautious, temperamental, dominant, unpredictable. That's how some staff quietly described him. But in front of the crowds, Orky was just another part of the show. On November 21, 2007, both Corky and Orky were scheduled to perform together. And as the music started and the whales glided into the spotlight, no one, not even Ryan, knew what was about to happen. It was November 21, 2007, a crisp, cloudless Wednesday in San Diego. The kind of Southern California morning that promised sunshine, laughter, and unforgettable memories. At Shamu Stadium, the seats were filling fast. Parents snapped photos. Children leaned over the railings, clutching plush Orca toys. The water in the performance tank shimmered under the late morning sun. You could feel the buzz in the air. This was going to be a good show. Backstage, Ryan Hartley zipped up his wetsuit. Calm, focused, confident. He had done this routine dozens of times before, but today felt different. Not in a bad way, just heightened. More energy, more eyes on him. He did a final walkthrough with his fellow trainers, checked hand signals, went over his cues. Corky was already gliding through the water, responding with graceful flips and spins. Orky II floated in a nearby enclosure, watching. Ryan gave a thumbs up. The music started. The show began perfectly. Corky and Ryan nailed every movement. Splashes soaked the front row. The crowd roared with laughter and applause. Ryan dove into the water, resurfaced with perfect timing, and waved to the audience. Then came the crowd favorite, the nose ride. A high-risk, high-reward stunt where Ryan would stand on Corky's rostrum as she lifted him into the air. It was dramatic, dangerous, and thrilling to watch. Ryan took a deep breath. He treaded water next to Corky as she turned beneath him. He grabbed her fin. Corky surged upward. The crowd gasped in awe as Ryan rose out of the water, balanced like a surfer on her nose. Arms out, steady, triumphant. For a brief moment, he looked unstoppable. But just seconds later, everything would go violently, horribly wrong. The crowd was on their feet. Ryan Hartley gripped Corky's dorsal fin and pulled himself up. She lifted him from the water, like a living platform. The crowd cheered as Ryan stood tall, arms outstretched, surfing on the back of a killer whale. But just a few feet away, Orky II was watching. Trainers had noticed he was agitated earlier. Now, as Ryan stood proudly above Corky, Orky snapped. Without warning, he breached. 12,000 pounds launched into the air, straight toward Ryan. Ryan looked up. A shadow swallowed the light. Orky came crashing down on Ryan and Corky. The impact was instant. Ryan was thrown, his body folded, vanishing beneath the surface. The water turned red. The music stopped, and Ryan didn't come back up. Screams broke out. Trainers dove in. When they found him, he was face down, barely conscious. His body was mangled. His wetsuit had been ripped. His leg hung at an unnatural angle. Paramedics rushed him out on a stretcher, face pale and lips trembling. The crowd was silent as he was wheeled past. Not a single child was smiling now. The show had ended. But for Ryan Hartley, the nightmare was just beginning. The impact had lasted just a second, but the consequences would stretch across years of Ryan Hartley's life. When doctors examined him in the emergency room, the injuries were devastating. A shattered pelvis, fractures in both hips, 6 broken ribs, compound fractures in both legs, torn ligaments, internal bruising and bleeding. He had survived, but barely. In the days that followed, Ryan underwent 6 major surgeries. Metal pins, rods, and plates were used to rebuild the damage. His legs were stabilized with external fixators. His hips were held together with titanium screws. Nearly 3 pounds of hardware now lived inside his body, just to keep him walking. For the first few weeks, even breathing was painful. Nurses had to turn him every 2 hours to avoid further damage. Morphine dulled the pain, but nothing could dull the trauma. Then came the long road back. 14 months of recovery. A wheelchair became his constant companion. Every step was a battle. Every movement reminded him of the moment that changed everything. Physical therapy was brutal. Ryan had to relearn how to walk, how to balance, how to trust his body again. There were days he wanted to quit. Days where the pain was too much. Nights where he woke up sweating, reliving the moment Orky came down. Again, and again, and again. But Ryan Hartley wasn't the kind of man who gave up. In his mind, he hadn't just survived an attack. He'd survived a betrayal by the place he trusted, the job he loved, and the animal he thought knew him. And though his bones were healing, the emotional scars were just beginning to show. While Ryan Hartley recovered in silence, a storm was brewing behind the scenes. He wasn't the only one injured by killer whales that year. 2 other trainers, both hurt during separate shows, joined forces with Ryan. Together, they filed a lawsuit against SeaWorld. The claim was clear. SeaWorld had knowingly put them in harm's way. It wasn't just a freak accident, it was negligence. In court, the park's legal team fought back, hard. They argued that working with orcas always carried risk, that the trainers had assumed that risk, that Orky's actions were unprovoked, unpredictable, just nature. But insiders whispered otherwise. Trainers had raised concerns before, about Orky, about behavior, about pushing performances too far. The case dragged on. Months turned into over a year. Then, quietly, the case was settled out of court. No trial, no official ruling, just signatures and silence. As part of the settlement, all 3 trainers, including Ryan, were issued strict gag orders. They were legally forbidden from speaking publicly about the attack, the details of the case, or even showing certain documents. The official records were sealed. What happened behind those closed doors remains a mystery to this day. No press conference, no admission of fault, just a quiet erasure of one of the most shocking incidents in SeaWorld history. So, what made Orky do it? Experts have debated the answer for years. Some believe the attack wasn't random at all. One theory, jealousy or sexual aggression. According to a former trainer, Orky had been showing signs of arousal before the show even began. His body language was intense, circling, tail slapping, emitting unusual vocalizations. Trainers described it as like a stallion watching a mare being mounted. In this scenario, Corky, the female orca, was the mare. Ryan, the rider, became the threat. From Orky's perspective, Ryan wasn't a friend. He was competition. And there's something else. Captivity changes animals, especially intelligent, emotional ones like orcas. In the wild, these creatures swim up to 100 miles a day. In tanks, they circle the same space endlessly. That kind of confinement builds frustration, and frustration leads to aggression. The SeaWorld tanks were engineered for entertainment, not for emotional well-being. Scientists now believe that orcas can experience complex emotions, including anger, boredom, and yes, jealousy. If that's true, then Orky's attack may not have been instinctual. It may have been personal. In the immediate aftermath of the attack, SeaWorld scrambled to respond. Behind closed doors, panic was setting in. A trainer had nearly died, on stage in front of a live audience, and whispers were growing louder, that the whales were no longer safe to perform with, or maybe they never had been. The park issued a quiet internal directive. Trainers were banned from entering the water with the whales. No more close contact tricks, no more dives off orca noses, and absolutely no more riding stunts. At least, not for a while. It wasn't the first time SeaWorld had seen trouble. Other incidents had been brushed aside over the years, downplayed as miscommunication, accidents, or trainer error. But Ryan Hartley's attack was different. It was public, it was brutal, and it forced SeaWorld to admit, if only internally, that something needed to change. Some trainers supported the decision, others felt torn, pushed into a corner between passion and protection. After all, these were the people who had dedicated their lives to working in the water, bonding with these creatures face to face. But for now, safety won out. Water work was gone. Performances became less risky, but also less spectacular. The magic, the illusion of harmony between human and whale, began to unravel. And for the first time, people inside and outside the park started asking tough questions. Where's the line between showmanship and survival? And had SeaWorld already crossed it? After the dust settled and Ryan Hartley began to heal, a much larger question hung in the air. Was this just an accident, or was it a warning sign of something far deeper and far more disturbing? Marine biologists had been sounding the alarm for years, that orcas do not thrive in captivity, that their minds, as sharp as primates and as emotional as humans, begin to deteriorate in concrete tanks. In the wild, orcas swim up to 100 miles a day. In captivity, they circle the same enclosure again and again and again. The result? Anxiety, depression, aggression. symptoms disturbingly similar to mental illness in humans. Scientists have documented whales gnawing at the sides of tanks, breaking their teeth on steel gates, lashing out at trainers, and even at each other. Could Ryan Hartley's attack have been prevented? Maybe. But the bigger question is, should it have been expected? Because if highly intelligent, socially complex animals are placed in unnatural, confined spaces, forced to perform for crowds under lights and music, how long until one breaks? How long before another Orky lashes out? Before another Ryan becomes a victim? Ryan's injuries weren't just physical, they were a crack in the illusion that humans can fully control nature, that we can package power, beauty, and wildness into a stadium-sized tank, and expect nothing to go wrong. But nature doesn't follow scripts, it doesn't perform on cue, and when pushed too far, it always pushes back. A rising star, nearly killed in front of thousands. A killer whale, acting out in a way no one saw coming. And a global audience left asking questions SeaWorld never wanted to answer. What did we learn from the day Ryan Hartley was crushed by a whale? That even the most trained animals can act unpredictably? That one wrong moment in captivity can change a life forever? Or did we learn something bigger? Something about ourselves, and how far we're willing to push nature for the sake of entertainment? These creatures aren't actors. They're apex predators, brilliant, emotional, and powerful beyond our understanding. So we'll ask the question one last time. Ryan Hartley survived, but was it just an accident? Or was it something deeper, bubbling beneath the surface? If you found this story intense, emotional, or thought-provoking, hit the like button, subscribe for more true animal encounter stories, and drop a comment. Do you think the whale was lashing out, or just doing what nature designed it to do? Thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next video.